Breaking news. The Kremlin has confirmed that Putin will travel to China. On Wednesday, the Kremlin announced that Russian President Vladimir Putin would be traveling to China soon, citing the opportunity to further strengthen ties between the two countries. Putin's trip date will be announced once it has been finalized, according to Dmitry Peskov, a spokesman for the Kremlin. There has never been a better time to keep the momentum going in the improvement of bilateral Russian-Chinese relations than right now. We'll coordinate and keep you posted on the specific times and dates. Conversation is ongoing, on many different levels, he said. After sending tens of thousands of troops into Ukraine, strained relations with the West to post-Cold War lows, Russia has bolstered economic, trade, political, and military ties with China. A few weeks before Russia began what it calls a special military operation in Ukraine on February 24, 2022, Putin and Chinese President Xi Jinping pledged a no-limits partnership. In March of this year, Xi traveled to Moscow to meet with his dear friend, Putin, and seal a number of economic and other agreements. However, Kyiv and its Western allies rejected the plan, claiming it would lock in Russian territorial gains, and China, a major buyer of Russian oil and gas, presented a paper calling for a de-escalation and eventual ceasefire in Ukraine. According to Peskov, Putin and Xi Jinping will discuss bilateral trade and economic cooperation as well as global issues during Putin's upcoming visit to Beijing. Since Moscow and Beijing share a similar understanding of the core principles of international relations, we have extremely promising prospects for further discussions and, most importantly, for constructive interaction, Peskov said. After Russia issued a statement supporting the United Arab Emirates, UAE, and opposing Iran's claim to the three contested islands, Iran summoned Russia's ambassador in Tehran, Alexei Dadov, on Wednesday. Moscow and the GCC issued a statement on Monday urging a peaceful solution to the conflict over Abu Musa and the Greater and Lesser Tunbs Islands, in accordance with international law. The announcement followed a day-long meeting in Moscow that was hosted by Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. In response, Iran reportedly called the ambassador in to express objections on the content of the statement, as reported by Agence France Presse. The conflict involving Abu Musa, the Greater Tunbs, and the Lesser Tunbs has been going on for decades. Iran took over the islands on November 30, 1971, just 2 days before the United Arab Emirates was officially established. Despite the UAE's claims, Iran continues to manage the islands and has vigorously defended its right to do so. Meanwhile, on Tuesday night, despite the ongoing gas dispute between the two countries and the resumption of diplomatic ties, Kuwait returned 11 prisoners to Iran. The prisoners were transferred to Iran per an extradition agreement between that country and Kuwait. The Arab Gulf country said nothing further about the transfer. Iranian and Kuwaiti officials met in March to discuss legal matters, according to the Islamic Republic news agency, so the move makes sense. The Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs released a statement saying that the committee had discussed border and maritime security issues. For what it's worth, a rare public display of tension between Iran and Russia occurred when the Russian ambassador was called to Iran. Iran's support for the Russian invasion of Ukraine shows the two countries are close allies. Iran joined Russia in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization earlier this month. However, Abu Dhabi and Russia have very close ties as well. Since Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, both Vladimir Putin and Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, president of the United Arab Emirates, have visited Moscow. However, over the past year, Iran's ties with Kuwait have improved. As a show of support for Saudi Arabia following protests in Iran over the execution of Shia cleric Nimr al-Nimr, Kuwait recalled its ambassador in Tehran in 2016. In August of last year, Kuwait and Iran got back to talking normally again. This occurred as Saudi Arabia and Iran were in the midst of discussing ways to improve their relationship. In turn, Saudi Arabia and Iran reconciled in March of this year. The ongoing thaw, however, remains precarious. This month, Kuwait and Iran have been at odds over the ownership of the Gulf of Oman's Dura gas field. The debate, which has been going on for decades, has recently picked up steam. Plans to develop the field were announced in June by Iran's state oil company. Before the end of the month, both Kuwait and Saudi Arabia responded, saying that the entire Dura is within their neutral zone and calling for negotiations.